Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Napa Book Mind this evening as we celebrate Mumbai Modern, vegetarian recipes inspired by Indian roots and California cuisine. We are so happy to have with us here Amisha Gurbani in conversation with Napa's own Emma K. Morris. It's a very exciting evening for us all. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce these two and then let them take it away. Amisha Gurbani is a computer engineer, recipe developer, photographer, food blogger, and the creator of the Jam Lab. Born in Mumbai, she moved to the United States in 1999. She lives here in the Bay Area with her family. Through her blog and popular Instagram account, she teaches readers to play with sweet, spicy, sour, and savory flavors, inspired by her Indian and Gujarati heritage. Emma K. Morris is a visionary photographer, stylist, and creative director, entirely self-taught. Her clients include dozens of California's best restaurants, wineries, and resorts. In her past lives, Emma scouted bands for Sony Music, curated a nonprofit alternative art space, and directed the marketing and branding department for one of the nation's largest United Art Funds. Her work has been featured in internationally released books and dozens of publications, including Vogue and Bon Appetit. We are so happy to have both of you here this evening. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let you two take it away.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you. So Amisha, I think you wanted to start with an intro of your own.
Yeah, sure. So there was a big reason why I always wanted to write this cookbook. I lost my mother about 14 and a half years ago, and she has been my biggest inspiration in the kitchen. She inspired me to cook. She taught me so many things that I would not have learned otherwise. I started cooking when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I think just watching her cook in the kitchen has been like my biggest inspiration. Just seeing her like swirl into the kitchen like a hurricane, making so many dishes and within an hour, making breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time for us. I think that was always behind my love for food and my love for cooking. So when she passed, I think it was the biggest drawback, and I lost the most important person in my life, and I wanted to dedicate this cookbook to her. That was the biggest reason. Secondly, the cuisine of India is assumed as what you eat in restaurants. And you think that there is paneer tikka, there is samosa, and there's butter chicken, and there's naan. But there is just so much more to Indian cuisine. And that's what I wanted to showcase. India consists of like 28 states, and the food that I have showcased in the book comes from the western part of India, which is Gujarat. And that is just one of the states. And there are so many different cuisines. Every state has its own cuisine. So that is what I wanted to highlight. And of course, with the seasonal California produce that we are surrounded by, that is just so beautiful. I had to incorporate all that into the cookbook. I've been living in California for about 22 years. So just including all the California cuisine, along with my Indian Gujarati roots, it's been just a joy to create this cookbook and put all my heart and soul into it with all the different recipes. So yeah, that's how it all started.
And you can really feel it, So this is the cookbook. Hopefully everybody's seen it and can look at it. And, I love, my favorite thing about this cookbook is the stories. So right at the beginning, it's more just kind of talking about what you just said about your history and growing up, in that environment and your history and traditions. And I love that. And I think that in going through, I have so many things earmarked that I want to make. And the only thing I've gotten to make so far is the grilled Bombay sandwich.
Oh, that's my favorite.
It's so good. So it's page 151 if you've got the cookbook, and it's your favorite of the street foods, correct?
Yeah. And I have to show you the picture because I just made it today for a class, actually, for a class with Milk Street. And Yeah, it is one of, did you say 151?
Yeah, 151. And
Yeah.
it's so
This is-
colorful,
This
and
is what it looks like. It's like just a sandwich loaded with vegetables. It's just like 3 sliced vegetables. And it's Mumbai street food is like known all over the world, actually. It was actually showcased on Andrew Zimmerman's show. And he actually showcased Mumbai street food as one of his episodes.
Mhm.
And it's an episode which is a joy to watch because it takes me back home and reminds me of the food from the streets of Mumbai. So the grilled Bombay sandwich is, it's just a sandwich with like butter, salted butter, not unsalted, salted, cilantro chutney. And then it's got layers of roasted beets, potatoes, boiled potatoes, cucumber, onions, and tomatoes. And Emma, when you made the sandwich and you put watermelon radishes, I think that was a brilliant addition.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that next time.
And it was, I think cucumbers would be better, but I did watermelon radish because I didn't have any cucumbers. And then we did pickled onions instead of regular onion. And it was
that's amazing.
so good. So good.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I love the idea of you growing up in India and then moving to California and meshing the two the two together to make this cookbook. So, I mean, first of all, I want to say, so to everybody out there, I know Amisha for, I mean, I don't know how long.
A few years, like,
yeah, I mean,
6 years.
We're in a time warp because of COVID, but the first few times I met Amisha, she was doing a project called the Jam Lab, which is her Instagram and her blog, that you would bring me jam that you had just made. You would bring me strawberry jam because you knew it was my favorite. And it was the best jam I've ever had. And so I wanted you to talk for a minute, just kind of about how it all began. So talk about because you have a full-time job. So you are a full-time computer engineer, plus you're a mom, plus you do this blog and you had a jam company where you were selling jam online. So that was when I met you. So talk about the process really quickly before we get into the cookbook about your road here, what made you start the blog and the jam company and everything.
So actually it was my kids who inspired me to start Jam Lab. My kids started going to preschool. They were like 2 and 4. And they used to take peanut butter jelly to school. And I hated the jams from the market because they were like, you couldn't really taste the fruit as much. The fruit taste was not potent. And I was like, okay, I can make jam at home. My mom, she actually studied home science in India, and she actually learned Western cooking. So in the heydays, and in the 1970s, 60s, whenever. And she learned all the Western cooking. So she learned jams, shrubs, souffles. She used to bake a lot. So I think that's where I get the inspiration from, that's why I love baking and making jams. So that's how I started making jams. And we have so much beautiful fruit over here in California. So it just inspired me to make all these different jams and then try different jam combinations. So I have a strawberry and hibiscus jam in the book, which is my absolute favorite. It's so delicious.
And that's the one I remember the most that you gave me. I love it.
Yeah. It's the hibiscus, which just takes the flavor up a notch. And I don't like to add as much sugar as the outside jams that you get in the grocery stores. It's more like you can taste the potency of the fruit in the jams. So that's how I started Jam Lab. And I'm like, if I can make jams at home, I can definitely sell them. And I started selling them, and people started appreciating it. And but it was just too much having a full-time job, 2 little kids to manage, plus the business. So I stopped Jam Lab and just continued with my blog. And then I continued with my blog and Instagram. So that's how it took off.
Yeah. And it really has.
And I didn't change the name because I'm still jamming and experimenting in my lab, which is the kitchen.
Yeah. I love it. It definitely makes sense for you. And so you mentioned, California, we obviously have these beautiful farms all around us, and we have access to really incredible produce year round. So we have the opportunity to really cook seasonally. So I know that one of your favorite things to do is go to the farmer's market every week, right?
I go every Sunday religiously. to the farmer's market. All my fruits and vegetables are from there. The only thing that I buy off season is maybe tomatoes, because we use a lot of tomatoes in Indian cooking. So maybe that's the only ingredient that I use that is off season. But again, in California, I'm still seeing tomatoes at the farmer's market. So
yeah. And we have so many greenhouse projects too here. So,
yeah.
It's possible it's being grown hydroponically or all of that as well.
Yeah.
But, I think when you and I have talked in the past, we've just talked about how different California produce is because, what makes the food taste good is the produce.
It is the produce.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why eating seasonally and locally is so important. And we really have that distinct opportunity to do so here.
Yeah.
And I think that your cookbook really embodies that, which is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 small kids, and now they're 10 and 12, but since they were babies, I always put emphasis on feeding them like lots of vegetables and fruits, and hence my kids are not fussy. They just eat about anything at all, and I'm grateful for that. I'm truly grateful for that they're just ready to experiment any cuisine as long as there are vegetables in it and fruits. So yeah.
And I remember one of the first times I ever met you, you told me a story about how, and I can't remember how old they were at this point. It was years ago, but you had said, I just fed my kids sushi for the first time. They loved it. And I was like, because they were like little, and I mean, I'm just imagining myself as a kid trying to eat sushi, but I mean,
they like Brussels sprouts, which is like, really?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. And you have such a good Brussels sprout recipe in this cookbook, and you have a good story that goes with that, don't you?
Yeah. So, let me tell you the story. So I came to this country in 1999, and I was at USC in LA studying engineering. And at that point, I didn't know anyone. I had like a few Indian friends, but that's about it. So I started making American friends from other cultures as well. And we had this Thanksgiving potluck. And that was the first time I got my first experience with Brussels sprouts, and I did not like it. I was like, what is this? But as the years went by, I think Brussels sprouts really grew on me. And I found out the benefits of this cruciferous vegetable, like it's, just so good for you. And I started incorporating it in my diet in Brussels sprout season. And one of the ways that I love eating it is roasting it. And then I mix it with like dates, pomegranate earls, and then I toss it in this vinaigrette, which is made with toasted cumin and coriander seeds. And it's beautiful. Like my kids love it too. So that makes me very happy. I'm like, yes. I make it's become like our Thanksgiving tradition now. And I make it every Thanksgiving.
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's just such a great story about how food can really bring people together and bridge the gap between,
cultures.
Yeah. And that actually also reminds me of another story from your book. So I want to talk for a minute about, the question I had in my head was, what's one of your favorite recipes from the book? But I'm particularly thinking about the influence of African culture. So maybe let's get into that story about how that plays a role.
Yeah. So my grandma, she got married in 1948. She was 16 years old. And my grandfather had a business in Africa, in Uganda. So she went from India to Uganda on a boat. And she learned how to make biscuits as in cookies, but the British call it biscuits. So actually, I should show you the picture of the recipe, because it's really special, and the story is very special. So if you do get the cookbook, it's
page 267, Amisha.
267. Okay. So these are the cookies, and if you can see them, and I use this cookie cutter to make them, the spritz cookie cutter. And it's very few ingredients, actually, just very few ingredients. And my grandma actually learned how to make these cookies from her African helper. And in the heydays, in the 1950s, and she had this little oven a white oven. It was a Siemens brand oven. And then when they were thrown out of the country in the late 1960s, they took the oven with them on the boat back to India. And then they all moved to the UK, but my mom got married to my dad. And so they stayed back in Bombay. So my mom inherited the oven. So when I was growing up, I saw that oven too. So that oven was like, made all our cakes, made souffles, made all our birthday cakes, cookies, so many things, you know. And it was there till the early 2000s. And then we had to finally give it away.
Right.
But that oven was special, and these cookies are special, and the cookie recipe passed down from my grandma to my mom and her sisters, and now to me. And I make it every Christmas for my family and friends. It's just a really delicious cookie. It's just got like notes of vanilla and ginger, ground ginger. That's it. And basic ingredients: flour, butter, sugar.
So in the African culture, is the ginger the thing that's making it a little bit different? Because I know that, you know, you're adapting to where you live, and there are different interests and nuances. And I think about in African cuisine, I think about peanuts, I think about coconuts.
Yeah. Actually, there's a recipe in my book which is influenced by peanuts and coconut. Actually, it came from Africa, the recipe. And it's called corn on the cob in coconut curry.
Oh, I have that bookmarked.
And I got that recipe from my aunt. I called her up. She lives in London now. And she was born in Uganda, and she moved to the UK, got married and moved to the UK. And I called her up and I said, Ranju, I call her by her first name. I'm like, I need your recipe and you need to write it. And she's like, write it? I don't measure things. And I'm like, you measure it out and you send it to me. So I made her do that. She sent it to me. I tested it a couple of times and then I put it into the book. But it's her recipe, and it's basically corn on the cob, and the curry has the coconut and peanuts, ground peanuts, and it's just beautiful. The taste, the notes are amazing. And that the coconut and the peanut influence comes from Africa because it was cheap and just so readily available, accessible. And what the Indians did is Indianized it. Or the Gujaratis Indianized it, and they put masalas in it. So the authentic recipe does not have any spice, has very few spices, but it doesn't have like the turmeric and the garam masala and the coriander powder. But this recipe was Indianized, and that's how I got it, and I put it into the book.
Right. Yeah, I know. I love that.
Yeah.
So one other note, because I'm just like looking at this beautiful photo that you took of your mom's biscuits, and you mentioned the spritz, which is this little contraption that makes these beautiful little designs, like, you know, here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I have to say that even though I cook constantly, I bake constantly, I am almost scared to take on a project like this. I'm afraid of making things that won't look as pretty. So you've mentioned to me in the past, you can still make these, but you can just slice it. You don't have to have a fancy.
Oh, no. So what my mom would do sometimes, if she didn't want to spritz it, I learned this again from my mother. And what she would do is she would just roll the dough, like put it in the fridge for a couple of minutes, or a few minutes until it's a little bit firm, and then roll it out with flour, just how you make like Linzer cookies or something like that. And she would use the cookie cutter and just cut it out and then bake it. You just have to monitor the bake time because it could be different, but that's another way to do it. So when she didn't want to remove the cookie cutter and go through the trouble of washing it, that's what she would do.
Yeah. I mean, and so just going kind of back to what we were just talking about with the, I think about it like a substitution. So if I don't have a spritz, I can make it another way. So I am flipping through this book and I'm noticing that you have this really beautiful section of pantry staples. So I am someone that I cook at home a lot, but I don't have a lot of those whole spices, especially. So I have whole cloves, I have whole cumin, mustard seed, a couple of basic things. So I just wanted to touch on the fact, and first of all, I have to say that my spice situation is a hot mess. And I think that I've sent you pictures before in the past where I really, because I cook so much, I want to be able to understand where my spices are. And you have it figured out because you use something called a masala daba.
Yes.
Is if you Google it, it's like, you know, this
it's
beautiful
just,
little tin
it's
that
just,
has sections. And you can put, you know, you can have one for your, so you can have one for your whole spices and then one for your ground spices.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Know, and you just know where everything is, right? So tell me more about how you decide what goes in there and what you perceive to be the most important spices so people don't have to buy them all.
Yeah, so I think if you want like a staple, just the staple spices to make a good Indian meal, I think you just need the main powders. So I would say like ground cumin, ground coriander, turmeric, red chili powder, and garam masala. And then I would say like whole seeds would be cumin seeds, and then mustard seeds. And I think that's pretty much comprehensive. It fits into like this masala dabba with 6 or 7 containers, and I think that that's pretty much it'll take you through many Indian meals.
And then so those are the kind of the basics, but I'm getting really deep into some things, and I've ordered some stuff online that I can't find locally. So I'm very into Asafoetida, which a lot of people don't know about. And I didn't know about until recently. And it's just almost like the idea of MSG, where it just elevates a flavor, but it's different. So tell me a little bit more, like tell us about that.
Yeah, it's basically all hing. The Indian name is hing. It's Asafoetida, and actually it's available at all Indian stores. And when you're tempering in the beginning of any Indian dish, you put a little bit of oil, you let it heat for a minute or so, and then you just put like a little bit of hing. It gives like a good pungent taste, but you just need like a little bit to just amp up the flavor of the entire dish.
So you put it on the tempered spices versus
you put it just in the hot oil first. The first spice that you add is like hing, the Asafoetida, and then you add in like say cumin seeds or mustard seeds, and then you add in all the dry spices.
I've been doing it wrong.
So it goes in that order. So it's the hing, and then the curry leaves if you're adding curry leaves, and then the whole seeds, which is cumin seeds and mustard seeds. Then you add the vegetable, and then you add all the spices. That's the order.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then, so this leads me to another question. Let's talk about the difference between tempering and toasting your spices.
Yeah. So toasting is when you talk about toasting spices, you're toasting whole spices, and you're taking the whole spices, you're taking like a skillet, and then on medium heat, you're just putting like all these whole spices, and you start getting a fragrance after 3 or 4 minutes, and that's when you stop. You start getting the smells, and that's when you know it's like nicely toasted, and you'll see like a slight brownness on the whole spices, and then you let it cool, and then you grind it up in the spice grinder. And some of the recipes call for that, not all recipes. And then there is tempering. What tempering means is you take a pot, you put oil, and when you put the whole seeds in it, the cumin and the mustard seeds, the curry leaves, that's called tempering. That process is called tempering.
Oh, okay.
And that's what you do for dals, for example. That's called tempering. Okay. So yeah, that's the process for dals or even vegetables.
Right.
So that's the difference.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's so helpful. And these are like things I always wonder about, and I'm too lazy to like just, so it's so nice to just talk to a friend about it.
We need to cook together soon.
So thinking about spices, so we are all in areas where we have the luxury of having really nice local spice places, spice shops. My personal favorite shop is Oaktown Spice in Oakland.
Wonderful.
And that's very accessible to all of us here in the Bay Area. But tell us a little bit more about, do you have any favorite shops locally or markets that you like to buy from online for people that aren't in California?
Yeah, I mean, in the day and age that we live in 2021, we are so lucky to get spices all over the country now, and you can just buy them online and they're at your doorstep like in a few days. So the companies that I like are Diaspora and then there's Spicewala. And then there are other smaller companies like, there are a lot of Indian spice companies actually, and actually Indian grocery stores have online grocery stores now, which ship all across the US. So if you just Google it, I'm sure there are some Indian stores. When I was looking around, I saw I Shop Indian, and they actually sell all lentils, different kinds of lentils too, as part of their glossary.
And that totally leads me to the next question too. So I am slightly overwhelmed by on page, what page? It's page 27. So it's in the pantry section. You've listed out all of these kinds of lentils, right? So as, you know, as it stands, I have literally only cooked with
these other lentils.
So I think of black lentils and I think of brown lentils, and like, that's all I know. So there are in your cookbook, there are call outs for, you know, brown chickpeas, white peas, pigeon peas. So tell us about these different kinds and what the difference is texturally and cook times, and why do we need so many?
I think because Indian food is so focused, or not Indian food, I should specify, Gujarati food is so vegetarian focused that the way to get proteins is through lentils. And I think that was a big focus group, a food group that is used and is still used widely. I get all my proteins from lentils. And that's why it's a huge part of my upbringing, my growing up. And different lentils are used in different ways, actually. And it's a very good question. It can be very confusing for someone who's not grown up with it. And it's a fantastic question. So the ones that I highly recommend, if you had to pick 2 or 3, I would pick the green mung beans, the green mung beans.
Okay.
I have a healthy sprout salad, which is absolutely delicious. You sprout these green mung beans over a period of 2 to 3 days, and then you mix it with the chutneys and some tomatoes and onions and cucumber, raw green mango, and it's absolutely delicious. And it's so healthy. There's no oil. There's nothing fried. It's an absolutely healthy, and it's a street food. It's a Mumbai street food actually, which is readily available.
Yeah. So when you sprout it, so you don't actually have to cook the lentil. It just sprouts and it becomes like and you're soaking.
It sprouts. Yeah. And then you have to steam it for a few minutes because they're still hard to eat. So you steam it just for a few minutes so that they're slightly supple and soft and still have a crunch. So that's what you're aiming for with the sprout salad.
Ooh,
and the other one is the pigeon pea lentils, which is called tuer dal. And we make a Gujarati dal out of it. And I don't know anyone who's had this dal who's not liked it. So it becomes like a favorite of anybody who has it. So it's a recipe that anybody should try. And once you boil the dal, it's just a matter of 15 minutes for it to get ready.
So
it's very simple.
So which
it's in the mains, I think.
Okay. So is it like a dal you would get at
it's a dal? Yeah, and you just have it with rice. Yeah.
Sounds so good. I mean, I've never met a vegetarian Indian meal that I haven't loved. So like I just want to make your entire cookbook, and I get really excited that you're working California into it, because all of the things that are so accessible to us, we can work into your recipes, which is really cool.
Yeah. Oh, and there's another lentil that you must try, which is another favorite recipe, and it's another Mumbai street food that I love. It's called ragda pattis with the one you asked me about, the pigeon, the white beans.
White pigeon peas, right?
Yes, the white pigeon peas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have that marked, and I'm trying to find it right now because so this recipe, I don't know if anybody here has ever had samosa chaat when you go to an Indian restaurant, but it's basically this beautiful like samosa that is hot and crispy, and they split it open and then they cover it with all of these different toppings, which is called chaat, right? So it's like yogurt and sev, which are like the crunchy little
cilantro chutney and the date tamarind chutney. So it's got the sweet and the savory and the spicy. Yeah.
It's just like the most satisfying food of my life, because it's like every texture I love, every flavor that I love. So I can't wait to try your version, which instead of samosa, you use crispy potato patties, right?
Yes, yeah. It's just aloo is potato, so tikki is patty,
Okay.
patties as we call them in India, and they're just like just potato with spices. And I think I told you the story. Like half of the cookbook is shot by a different photographer and a food stylist, and the food stylist made this recipe to shoot it for the book. And she had an assistant who was American, and she does not like Indian food as much as her husband. But she actually messaged me personally. She DM'd me and she's like, this is one of the best Indian dishes I've ever had. And she's like, I'm going to learn how to make it myself. And that was like the biggest compliment I could get. It made me so happy.
Yeah. And that's like completely believable to me, because to me, if you have that in front of you, unless it's wildly spicy or something, there's no way that somebody couldn't like that, unless they're like one of those freaks that hate cilantro, which I think so. I think, wait, I see some friends in here that I know actually hate cilantro. I love you all. But so speaking of cilantro, on page 42, the cilantro mint chutney, I am completely obsessed with this. And Evan and I made this the other day to go on the Bombay sandwich. And we had a giant bowl of it to dip the sandwich in, even though it was already on the sandwich because sauce. But for some reason, I've made this chutney before, not your recipe, but I've made it and it tastes so much better than other chutneys. And I'm realizing it's because of your use of peanuts.
Yes.
So that's drawing back to the African culture and bringing that part of your life in, right?
No, actually, that's not related to the African culture. It was just how the cilantro chutney was made in India. Actually, peanuts are used a lot in India too. And they're used a lot in Gujarati cooking, and even in South India, they're used a lot. Peanuts are used. I
never see it.
Yeah, like because peanuts is such an accessible nut, and it's a cheap nut compared to the other nuts. So that's why it's just accessibility, and it's grown in abundance in India. Actually, another thing that you would like to know is peanut oil is used a lot in Indian cooking. Mm-hmm. It's not very good for you, but it's used a lot.
Isn't it a very high smoke point though? So you can fry with it,
and it's very fatty. It's got so much fat in it. It's just not healthy for you. But people cook in peanut oil in India, and I never understood that. But
neither is butter, and we can't live without it, can we? So just really quickly, I want to touch on this. So you grew up vegetarian, correct?
Yeah.
So was your whole family vegetarian? Was that just the way that it was in your area, or was that a choice that your family made?
Actually, Gujaratis are predominantly vegetarian. Okay. My dad actually was not vegetarian. He used to eat chicken. That chicken was the only meat he ate. And when I was born, he started feeding me chicken soup. And my mom hated it because she was a staunch vegetarian. So he started feeding me chicken soup, and then I started eating chicken with him in restaurants because we were not allowed to cook at home. So I ate chicken till I was 10, and then my grandma, who lives in London, she's 90 years old, and I visit her quite often. She brainwashed me when I went there when I was 10, and she brainwashed me, and she said, "Why are you eating chicken when you can get all your nutrition from plants and lentils?" And I stopped. I listened to my grandma and I stopped. I was 10 and she brainwashed me. So I stopped eating meat.
Right. And then, and how do you cook in your household?
I'm okay if my husband cooks meat. I'm not staunch like my mom. But my kids don't eat meat. And every time they want to eat meat, I tell them, do you know that chicken is getting killed for your pleasure?
That's a good way to get kids to stop. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to try it.
If I had a mom who was cooking me the kind of food that you make and I ate meat, I would never even think about it, just because everything is so just fulfilling. It's so good. And like you said, you're getting so much protein. So I don't know. I love that your cookbook not only spans through all of my favorite kinds of, dips and jams and main dishes and side dishes. You've also got like breads, and you've got soups, and you've got desserts, which you're also known for. You're known for these really vibrant, beautiful desserts and cocktails. And I want to eat them all, but you're a much better baker than me. So I'll let you bake it for me. But it's such a great cookbook because it's huge,
Thank you.
you're getting, how many recipes are in here?
117.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It took me, it was, I call it my COVID baby because I wrote it all through the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's what kept me sane through the entire pandemic, because there were so many, it was just so hard getting through last year. And with 2 kids, homeschooling and working from home, it was just very, very hard. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you did a really phenomenal job, and I'm just so happy to see this all come to fruition because you've worked so hard for this. And
yeah, it's been a long project. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, so my other questions that I have for you are just all more about recipes. So can you tell me a couple of other, let's just talk about a couple other standout recipes in the cookbook. So we talked a little bit about your mom's biscuits, and we talked about a couple of the dolls. What other things in here that call back specifically to you growing up, in India and then moving to California and learning about the produce? So did you have access to things like watermelon radishes and things that you have here? Like I'm looking at the summer California salad, for example.
No, we didn't have access to watermelon. I didn't know what a watermelon radish was until a few years ago, and my trips to the farmers market, which has educated me a lot about the different produce that you can get here. Like I mentioned about Brussels sprouts, I had no idea what Brussels sprouts were until I experienced at my first Thanksgiving dinner. So it's a lot of different produce that you don't get in India, but you get here. And I've tried to incorporate that into the book, which has been really fun. Like you don't get peaches in India, or growing up, I did not get peaches in India. I'm sure things have changed a lot. Growing up, I did not get apricots in India, but I wanted to create an apricot and saffron jam. And the saffron adds this beautiful floral royal note to the apricot jam, to the fruitiness. And it's just it's become one of my favorite jams now. And I use it in a couple of recipes in my book too. So.
And do you ever use jams in a savory way? Because one of my favorite ways to use them is, on a cheese plate or something like that.
Yes, and that's what I use the apricot and saffron jam for.
Nice.
It's excellent with like some brie and some crackers.
Oh, that sounds so good. So likewise, so when you're moving to California, you're swapping out, fruits and vegetables you couldn't find in India. What are some things when you lived in India? What were some things that you really miss that you can't get here?
Oh, there are all the tropical fruits you don't get here.
Yeah,
like lychee. You don't get lychee here. You don't get, I don't know what you call it here, but it's called custard apple or sitafal, cherimoya. Cherimoya, I believe that's what it's called here. But I've not seen it here at the farmer's market. And there are a couple other tropical fruits. You just don't get it here. Papaya is also another one, which you don't get it at the market. And I'm not going to buy it from the grocery store because they won't be as good as what I get in India. So
definitely.
Yeah.
And once you've had things at peak ripeness, it's so hard to go back. It just reminds me of, so I grew up in the Midwest, grew up in Michigan, and I had never had an avocado until I moved to Florida.
Oh, really? Oh.
Like I literally had just never, because avocados didn't become, trendy until, I don't know, probably 15 years ago or 17 years ago.
Yes.
So when I moved to Florida, I had an avocado tree in my yard.
Oh.
And that became like, wow, this is the freshest avocado I've ever had. So now I have trouble going to the market and getting this thing from Mexico that's not ripe yet. And it just feels wrong, but I still love avocado toast so much. I still do it.
Yeah.
But it's
the same thing. Like we never grew up with avocados.
Right.
But on my trips to UK, because UK is such a central place, they get produce from all over the world. And I had my first avocado when I was 10. I did not like it.
Yeah.
I did not like it.
It's just, it's so interesting how our tastes kind of like shift over time, and what happened with you with Brussels sprouts. And sometimes I really think it just takes the right recipe or it takes the right spices or the way, because I didn't like Brussels
sprouts. The way it is cooked.
Right. Until I pan fried it. And then all of a sudden I pan fried it, you add a little butter, you add a nice like seasoning to it, and it changes the game. Right.
Yeah, and that takes me to another recipe that I thought of, like you mentioned, like it's just the way it is prepared. Like I have an okra recipe in the book, which is okra tempura fries. And I spice up the tempura batter with Indian spices. And that's how I make the tempura fries. And my husband does not like okra. And I'm like, how can you not like okra?
I don't like okra.
I don't like okra.
It's like, it's texturally weird. There's like little seeds in there.
He does not like it. And he loved this when I made it. And I was like, you have to try one, just one. And then he could not stop. And I was like, okay, I made you try okra. I'm going to tell your mom this.
But that's fried food for you.
That's right.
He can make anything good if it's fried.
Yeah, but well, he ate it, so I was very happy. I was like, okay, I made you try okra.
Right? Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so we are about 15 minutes out, so we wanted to open up the chat. So I think Elena is going to, oh, there she is. Hello.
So we do have a question in the chat. Rosabelle, whose name I hope I pronounced correctly. Can you share a couple of uncommon desserts in your book?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of uncommon desserts. Actually, one of them is sorry. Oh, I have this this recipe, which is the mango Shrikhand panna cotta tart. It's just a panna cotta tart, but made out of yogurt, Greek yogurt. And it's absolutely divine. It's got like this ginger snap crust and pistachios on the top, mangoes on the top. And it takes me back to when my mom used to make mango Shrikhand. It's really delicious. It's just very tart, sweet. It's got saffron in it, cardamom in it. So it's a really good dessert. And the other one is that I wanted to show you is it's the masala chai tiramisu.
So yummy. That looks good.
This is really good. It's like a masala chai tiramisu. So I make like a masala chai concentrate. And then instead of coffee, I put that on this eggless cake that I make. And the cake doesn't take time at all. It takes like 10-15 minutes to bake because it's just a thin layer of cake. And then you soak it with the masala chai concentrate. You put the rose mascarpone whipped cream on the top, sprinkle it with pistachios and repeat it. And then that's it. You let it settle and then eat it.
That sounds absolutely delicious. And then another dessert that I see here that I'm like very, very interested in is the fennel pot de creme, because you add in rose poached peaches.
Oh, that is so good. Yeah.
And cardamom and saffron. So it seems like you actually use saffron a lot of your desserts.
I do. And I think it's something that I grew up with a lot. And saffron is expensive, but you don't need a lot. Like you just need like a pinch and it goes a long way. Growing up, we had these, it comes in this little box, saffron. And my mom had like so many of them tucked away in the fridge. She would have at least like 5 to 10 at a time tucked away in the fridge. So she used saffron a lot in her cooking too. And saffron is used in savory cooking too, to make any dish like royal. Yeah.
So like I've had it before in a risotto or something like a rice dish.
Okay.
So I have a question about spices, because you mentioned the refrigeration. Do you refrigerate any of your spices other than saffron?
I do refrigerate whole spices.
You do? So you put your whole masala daba in the fridge?
No, not masala daba. Like so what I do is I buy things in bulk because I use it a lot. So I buy it in bulk, and whatever I can put in the masala daba, that stays outside. But whatever I cannot, I put it in jars and I store it in the fridge.
That's really smart.
Yeah.
Definitely lasts longer. I store all my nuts in the fridge.
Yeah, nuts too.
Sure. That's why our fridge is always packed with like nuts and seeds, and Evan is just like, what is going on? There's so much in our fridge right now. And I'm like, it's all because it needs to be there.
I need a bigger fridge.
I know. So I wanted to mention too,
there are more questions.
people, that people can talk to. You can unmute yourself, right? Elena, if people want to ask
Yes,
questions too.
absolutely. I do see, so there's a follow-up question to Saffron, and then Richard has a question in here. So I'll ask both of those. The follow-up question first is, how long do you think it's good to keep saffron for?
Forever.
Forever.
According
Cool.
to me. Because I have like, just like my mom, I do things just like what my mom did. And I have like at least 3-4 saffron boxes just lying in the fridge. And I use it, you know, you make masala chai. If you ever make your own masala chai, you just put a pinch of saffron in the masala chai. It takes it up a notch. And this is a trick that my aunt taught me, my aunt in UK, my mom's sister. So she taught me that trick. And actually I put it in the book too, I think.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that too. I didn't know that too. She told me this and I was like, okay, I'm going to put it in the book.
Does it impart color?
No,
Okay.
just taste.
Okay.
Okay, so Richard's question is, how do you downsize the main meals for just one person? Can leftovers be frozen for later use?
Downsizing is a very good question. I'm going to be honest, I don't have an answer to that because I cook for my family and we are 4 of us and I always make extra so we can have leftovers. And I like to, you know, cook for a lot of people. So it's a difficult question, but if you make a lot, you can always, most of the main recipes, you can put it in the fridge for at least a couple of days. And if you want to freeze it, you just put it in a Tupperware and freeze it, and then you can defrost it and eat it again.
Yeah, and I will add on to that, Amisha. Like I generally, I cook really big too, even though there's just 2 of us. And I always, especially with like dal and curries, I'll make like big things of curry and just keep them in little individually sized things in the fridge, or the freezer. So that way, if it's just, you know, me for one night or I'm going somewhere and need a lunch, it freezes.
And lentils taste best the next day.
Yeah, like soup too.
Yes, yeah, if the flavor just grows. Yeah.
So Tracy is curious what recipe you make when you're missing your mom, Amisha.
Oh, my mom's biscuits. That's what I called it in my book, Mom's Biscuits. And another one is, which takes me right back home, is another recipe in the book, which is called dal dhokli. Dal dhokli is basically dal, which is lentil soup, as you call it. And dhokli is basically like wheat noodles. You can practically imagine it as like just pasta. So it's like almost like pasta and dal, but it's made out of wheat and spices, and then you just roll it, cut it up, and just put it directly into the soup, into the dal, and it's absolutely delicious. Again, it does not take time, and it's a dish that takes me right back home because my mom would make this every Sunday religiously, and my dad and my brother still eat it every Sunday religiously.
That's so cute.
That's awesome. I love that. Rosabelle is curious what is one of your family's favorite dish? I'm guessing she means your kids.
Oh, my family favorite. My family's favorite is, I think they're not picky at all. But favorite, I would say, is what I made today. I made the grilled Bombay sandwich, and I made pav bhaji sliders, which is again in the book. Both of them are in the book, and they love that. They love chaat. They love the Mumbai chaat. So any street food dish that I make for them, they love. They love junk. Like street food is like considered junk food, but it's pretty healthy. It's got a lot of vegetables. So I won't say like it's junk food. But yeah, they love street food. Whatever street food I make.
Now I'm getting hungry. I don't know about anybody else. So Richard has another question on what the best meal and dessert to make for a romantic date night might be.
That's a good question.
I like where Richard's head's at.
If you're making Indian food, I actually like this one is a fun one, which is actually really delicious, and that's a good question. It's, oh yeah, right here. It's sorry. It's the paneer skewers with a cilantro, peanut, and toasted coriander seed pesto. If you can see this. This is like awesome. Like you make this, get some, if you don't want to make the garlic naan, it's again in my book, but if you don't want to make garlic naan, you get it from the grocery store, and have it with some raita, some yogurt sauce, and it's delicious. Oh, page number is 145. That's a good one.
And FYI, because somebody asked about freezing stuff, I make naan and then I freeze it in, I put like wax paper or parchment in between each one. So you can literally just take one off and put it in the toaster oven. So you can just have like a piece of naan whenever, if you make one big batch.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like my favorite thing to do.
Oh, this is a fun one too. It's a tandoori vegetable wrap with a mango cabbage slaw. So it's just like this tandoori vegetables in a naan, and then I have like a mango cabbage slaw and this raita. So it's really good. It's a complete meal, and it's fun.
Amisha, look, I also just like opened up to this page. So this is the aloo tikki Aaron.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's my daughter's favorite.
That seems like a really sexy date night food.
It is. It is. It's quite delicious actually, and my daughter loves it. And I have to make it for her quite often because she won't leave me otherwise.
Yeah, I'm bookmarking it. I have this little thing and I just keep ripping off paper and bookmarking like all the things I want to make.
So Amisha, do you sleep? Is my question. Because you have a full-time job and you have your family and you do this, like, you don't sleep, right?
I do sleep. I need my sleep. I don't function without sleep. I like to exercise, so I exercise. I'm not the fittest, but I love to exercise. I love to eat, and I love to work. I'm a workaholic.
I'm impressed. I mean, you said how many recipes? There's so many recipes in this book.
117.
That's so much.
Yeah, but I have to, like, I wouldn't have done it without my husband and my kids. They were super supportive the whole of last year. They were very,
I mean, I'm sure they were recipe testing, right? So
yeah,
that's like the best part.
Yeah, they were patient with me and just let me do my thing.
You can recipe test in my house anytime you want because I just get to eat everything that you make.
we need a recipe, whatever, what do you call it? Cooking time. Cooking.
Oh, yes. Yes, please.
Yes.
Well, we have just a couple of minutes left. So if there's anybody who wanted to pop on screen and ask or say anything in person, Gloria, I think you have your hand up. Go for it.
Hi, Amisha. It's Gloria.
Hi, Gloria. Hi, Gloria.
Hi. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think was like the most, I don't know, maybe fun or even challenging recipe to put together as you were fusing, your background and how you grew up and those ingredients and those flavors with what you learned or what you love from the California produce?
Dish that was challenging. Actually, it's the mango Shrikhand tart, but I did not use the California mangoes in it, but it was a challenging one. The mango Shrikhand panna cotta tart. I made that 7 times. 7 times. And I kept trying it and it was just not turning out the way I wanted it to. And I kept trying. I was trying to make it vegetarian by using agar-agar instead of gelatin, so that I could, because a vast majority of the Indian population is vegetarian. They do not like to use gelatin. And for that reason, why I was trying to use agar-agar, and it was just turning out too gelatinous. And it was just not working out for me. So I finally stuck to gelatin because the texture was just how I wanted it. And it was a recipe I tested 7 times. And although it didn't use the California mangoes. I did use California mangoes, but it did not work out again the way I wanted to. So there were quite a few iterations I did, like 7 iterations. And finally, I used the canned mango puree from the Indian grocery store because it's got the Alfonso mangoes, which is an amazing taste that you cannot get anywhere. And that hit the spot. And that reminded me of my mom's mango Shrikhand. And I was like, okay, this is it. I'm not changing it any further than what I achieved finally. So it was a challenging one. Took me 7 tries. And yeah, that was, I think, the most difficult one for me. The others were pretty okay. This one, Gloria, to answer your question, there was another recipe which I made at least 4 times because I was trying to incorporate an Indian dessert in a cake along with plums, which is one of my favorite fruits. It's the plum Kalakan cake. And Kalakan is like an Indian dessert. It's an Indian sweet made with like ricotta cheese, condensed milk, milk powder sometimes, and you sort of like cook it down and it becomes almost like a fudgy texture. So I added that into the cake and it gives like this beautiful milk taste, almost like a burnt milk taste to the cake. And it's amazing, it's delicious. And that's another recipe that I kept trying like 3-4 times and I finally got it right. And it was I tried it with 2 different kinds of fruits, but finally it worked out with the plums. I think you're looking, when you're cooking, you're looking for something that is visually appealing, but yet it achieves the taste that you want. So it needs to be both. And I was trying to achieve that. And I think in my mind, I want the food to look visually appealing because when it looks visually appealing, then others want to make it too. Then that's how I view it.
Yes, thank you. Because actually I have those bookmarked, and just to hear a little, behind the scenes of your experience as you were blending all of these flavors and even textures is just so inspiring. To know that so much of your heart went into it and so much time and dedication. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your recipes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you for asking the question.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like I learned so much. What a wonderful chat you two have had, Amisha and Emma. Anything that you would like to end on this evening?
I just want to say thank you so much to Elena and Emma for, putting this together. I really appreciate all your effort and time. And Emma, thanks for chatting with me and putting together, all the questions. I really appreciate your time and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week.
Oh, for sure. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Amisha. Thank you, Elena, for managing everything for us. It was so fun. It was really nice to see all of your faces.
Yeah,
you guys enjoyed it.
Well, thank you all so much. Again, thank you so much to Emma and Amisha for an amazing presentation. We'll have this back up on YouTube in a couple of days in case you want to come back to it. Maybe if you didn't write down those spice tips. I know I will probably be revisiting this as well.
Ooh, that's a good call. Yeah.
We do have the cookbook at the shops, so pop by to pick up a copy or order it online at napabookmind.com. We do ship. And just thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope you have a really lovely evening.
Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.